Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. I don't even know what you're doing. Can't believe we are back already. Week number 2. College football season, excuse me. Less than 3 weeks upon us. Gentlemen, it's getting exciting. Woke up this morning, had a little goosebump action. I can't wait. But before we get to opening week, we gotta get through another preview week. So here we are. This week, we are going to do the Big 12, which is always the Wild Wild West, figuratively. Not much is literally anymore because, got East Coast teams in there now with realignment. But another fun show as always for you guys this morning. We'll do Breaking the Huddle. Alex will get us going here in a second. Coaches poll is out. We're going to go over that, what they got right, what they got wrong, who's too high, who's too low. Maybe there should be some teams in there that aren't. Maybe there's a few in there that shouldn't be in there at all. Somebody has some opinionated thoughts this morning. Won't say who. And like I said, we're going to go over the Big 12. We'll give you who we think for the Elimination Mountain, obviously who we think could factor in at the end of the season for the college football playoff. Heisman, obviously, from, somebody from that conference as well. Pretty much the same format we went over last week. And, we will have another fun-filled show for you this morning. But before we get going, as always, the 2 co-hosts that help steer the ship each and every Saturday morning make me look way better than I am. Top left corner, my Buckeye brother from another mother, the defending, reigning national champion, Mr. Cottrell Simpson. How are you? I love everyone's getting a different reaction from Alex every week I do this. I love it.
I'm doing good, man. I appreciate the respect factor there. I had to unfortunately give it to you and 2023 there, so now reciprocating the energy there. So Alex just doesn't understand. That's all. Maybe one day, if we're still doing the show, then hopefully we're not in retirement homes and we still know each other and we still remember what college football is at that point. But all in all, I'm doing good though. I'm doing good.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're doing well and enjoying your championship. And, to get the show going here, last but, certainly not least, Mr. West Coast. Oh, man. Mr. I Black, Mr. Pac-12, now to the Big 10, Mr. Oregon Duck himself, Mr. Please, please, please let me win a freaking national championship. Mr. Alex Elmore, how are you, sir?
Man, I'm good. Every morning I wake up with a smile on my face, and then Cottrell opens his mouth, and I'm instantly just sad. I'm just sad, and I question my life decisions. But it's okay, because this is the year of the Duck, all right? And I can't wait to watch every single week as the Ducks inch closer and closer and closer to that national title that, yes, has eluded us, but not for long. All right, so Alex, I'm excited to talk to the Big 12. Cottrell, I interrupt you. You don't interrupt me.
I thought you were done. Right? My bad.
I'm never done. You should know me by now. I'm never done talking. But
You're right.
I'm excited every week. I'm excited to talk to Big 12 today. Very opinionated. I'm going to bring up Avery Johnson at least 17 times this episode, so get ready for that. Somebody tag him in the comments. Let him know that we're talking about him. But I'm excited.
5 minutes on that one.
Did you take the under? Good, because we're at 446, and I've already talked about him. But no, I'm excited to talk about the coaches poll. Last week we were talking about wondering when it was going to come out, and it did this week, Monday. I'm super excited to go over that with you guys and go over some other news before we jump into some Big 12 action. So thanks for having me as always.
All right. Well, like I said in the preview, and like Alex just alluded to, we're going to do Break the Huddle as always. Start the show, and we will get into to the Big 12 preview and all that good stuff. And we're going to get cracking because, as always, we feel like we have a ton of time, and then we start talking, and then I feel like the show's over. So, Alex, take it away, buddy.
Shotgun, DC right, flip 90, dig, on the center, ready?
That's such a great movie, man. The Replacements. I love it. Welcome to Break the Huddle. Let me get up our fancy-dancy little graphic here. And you know what? We are going to start with our dessert first today, this morning, people, because we're going to jump right into the coaches poll, talk about the poll that just came out, talk about some teams that are top 10, some teams that are not in the top 25 that should be, some teams that are in the top 25 that should not be, maybe some teams are even ranked too high. And, Cottrell, you are the defending national champion. Not good enough to be ranked number 1 in the preseason polls, but that's okay. Go ahead and give me your opinion on what you think about the poll so far, and if you agree with Texas being number one.
I mean, I think it's tough to. For me, it's tough to really rank Texas at this point. I think they lost a ton of production last year, but I also can understand that they bring back a guy who has the potential to be the best quarterback in all of college football in Arch Manning. Now, I do think, of course, that is a big time question mark, and I don't know what that will look like. If I'm being honest, I didn't think they would put a Big Ten team number one. In the preseason poll there. But I thought Penn State would be that team in the number one spot, or I thought it could also be a Georgia team that really didn't lose a ton to the draft last year, but then also brought in weapons like Noah Thomas and Zachariah Branch, to go along with, Gunnar Stockton is their now new starting quarterback there. I really thought one of those teams were going to be there in the one spot, but seeing Texas there, I can't say that they don't necessarily deserve it. I just think they have a big time question mark. But when you got Arch Manning commanding your offense, I can understand how you end up in the one spot.
So for me, I agree with some of what Cottrell said. I disagree with other parts of it. I don't want to give away too much because I have a strong opinion on how I ranked my teams for when we do our top 10 here in a couple weeks on the week one show. It's going to be kind of a common theme for me, and some of what Cottrell just said factors into me heavily, and some doesn't. I don't think. I mean, if you're going, I think Clemson should be in the top 5, and if that means you take Georgia or Notre Dame out, I'm completely fine with that. I just think with what they have coming back, Notre Dame has enormous uncertainty at quarterback. I just don't know how you can put Notre Dame over Clemson, in my opinion. I actually think Clemson or Notre Dame should probably be in that 9th spot. I think you could slide them ahead of Miami or maybe have them number 10. But that's about where I think they are. You see BYU took the big plunge. They were pretty much, from all the other preseason rankings I saw, they were pretty much in that 15 to 18 range until obviously Retzlaff transferred, kicked out, whatever he did, down to Tulane. So they've dropped mightily. I don't know how you could probably honestly rank them in the top 25 until you know what's going to happen there. I think Florida has the ability to be higher. I don't think it's a bad starting spot for them. I think that whole group in the middle there from, I would say anywhere from South Carolina, probably all the way through Kansas State. I think there's a bunch of really good teams there. I think we just kind of have to see them play first and see exactly what they are this year. Other than that, I don't think anything else, like nothing stands out to me as wow as being really bad. I think Notre Dame is probably the most egregious for me.
How do you feel about Michigan, Bill, being 14?
Again,
are you happy with it or surprised?
I think it's honestly it's a double-edged sword for me. I think you look how they finished the season when you beat the national champs and then go to play Alabama, who's playing their starters, and you're playing a bunch of kids that we're looking to get experience for this year, or the guys that were going to start this year. Then you beat Alabama again. With what they have coming back on the defense, that will absolutely be a top 5 defense again. It's just going to be. I think so much of it just relies on what happens at the quarterback position. When you go 8-5 and you really can't complete a forward pass, I think if you get any kind of improvement there, have it be from, which I think is most likely going to be the situation with Bryce Underwood starting as a true freshman. Or if it's Mikey Keene, I I think it's an improvement over what they had last year either way. So I don't think they're national title contenders this year, but I think they could definitely sneak into the playoff at the bottom end of it. And I think they could be. I think if the production in the passing game is just adequate, I think they're a top 10 team with what they're going to have on defense, and they're going to have a great running game. So they're going to have a great 1-2 punch with Justice and Jordan Marshall. So, I think it's very fair. And if they start Bryce and Bryce looks like a true freshman, which is very likely, then they're probably, they should probably be somewhere between 20 and 25.
Okay. And Control, I know you talked about a little bit. How do you feel about Ohio State being 2? Did you see them being that high? Honestly, coming off a national championship, but you got a lot of turnover with running backs, quarterback especially. Did you see them coming out of the preseason poll at number 2, or did you see them more as like a top 5 caliber team before the season starts?
I'm not going to necessarily say that, out the gate I saw them being at 2. I thought the lowest spot they could possibly be would be 4. I know, Bill mentioned that, Georgia could even potentially be, slotted back if Clemson was up there. I didn't see any team. I thought Georgia, Texas, and Penn State were the only 3 teams I could potentially see being ahead of Ohio State. So Ohio State did lose a ton, and I 100% can recognize that. But I think for me is when you bring back as much as you do at a lot of the positions that matter, I think that's also important. Like offensively, Jeremiah Smith was, talent-wise, the best receiver in the country last year. Of course, he didn't win the Biletnikoff or anything like that, but he's the scariest receiver in college football. You have the opportunity to bring him back, and then defensively, for my money, I say you bring back the best defensive player in the country in Caleb Downs. Yes, you have a ton of holes to replace and things like that, but the receiving core is going to be perfectly fine. Carnell Tate is back there. And defensively, in a lot of the positions that we lost, fortunately for us, a lot of the guys who are going to be bona fide starters now, they played in that national championship game. They were in the rotation, they were getting reps. They're just going to be dependent on to be starters now. So I don't know what that looks like with them in their full-time roles, but you actually do have experience. And it's not uncertainty of what does that guy look like when he's out there on the field. It's really more so what does he look like for 4 quarters as opposed to, maybe a quarter and a half or 2 quarters. So I'm not necessarily surprised to see Ohio State at the 2 spot, but I would say coming into the season, I thought the lowest that I would see them would be 4.
Well, if I'm being honest with the Big Ten, obviously all 3 of us are fans of Big Ten teams. I was pretty shocked to see Ohio State in front of Penn State. And we kind of talked about this in the group chat a little bit. I look at Penn State the same way that Ohio State was looked at last year, and even Michigan the year before, returning quarterbacks, returning dominant running game, great defense, even losing their defensive coordinator, that they're going to bring it all on defense. So I was shocked that Penn State wasn't ahead of Ohio State. I thought for sure they'd be the highest ranked Big Ten team on the board. So I do think Ohio State got a little bit of the national championship love with that number 2 ranking. But the other 2 overhyped teams that I'm really looking at is Miami. I mean, we just talked about them last week. They're a 10-win team, or they could be a 5-win team. We just don't know yet. We don't know what that brand new defense is going to look like. We don't know what Carson Beck is going to look like. They lost Damian Martinez. They lost Cam Ward. They lost Restrepo, obviously all to the NFL. That's a lot of talent to lose. So I don't know if Miami is a top 10 team, and I think we're going to see that pretty early. And then the other team that I'm really kind of shocked of, is Bill kind of already mentioned it, is BYU. I mean, they lost the starting quarterback. They lost 2 of their last 3 games last season, did not end the season well on a high note, and losing your starting quarterback this close to the start of the season. I mean, you've got to be scrambling in camp. I think BYU should have dropped out of the top 25 entirely, if I'm being completely honest. And that leaves me to a couple teams that I feel like were left out of this top 25. And one of them we talked about last week as well, is Georgia Tech. With how last year ended, how well they played Georgia, bringing Haynes King back as a starting quarterback. He's a guaranteed game changer at quarterback, Haynes King is. So I would have liked to see them in the top 25. I would have also loved to see Iowa repping the Hawkeyes because of the disrespect that the coaches gave Kirk Ferentz and team. The defense is a staple every single year, always top 25 unit in the country. The big question with Iowa has always been, what's their offense going to do? Are they going to be a 13 points per game type of team, or are they finally going to get over that hump and start putting actual points on the board? I think this is the year where we see Iowa's offense take that step forward, and it's all because of transfer quarterback Mark Gronowski from South Dakota State. Dude is an absolute stud, and I think he's going to be the reason why Iowa is making some noise in the college football playoff this year. I'm not saying they're going to make the playoff, but I think they're going to be in that conversation, and it may come down to a late season win or loss to determine if they actually are going to make that college football playoff push. And then the last team I want to talk about, and you might be shocked by this, but Oklahoma. They had a huge transfer portal offseason. This is the first time since 1999 that they have not been in a preseason poll. John Mateer is an absolute beast at quarterback with his legs, with his arm. Dude can do it all. And he's reunited with an offensive coordinator in Ben Arbuckle. So he's not going to need to take time to learn a new offense. He's already familiar with it. So he's going to be able to hit the ground running. And then probably the most forgotten about transfer portal get of the offseason was Jaden Ott from Cal. Is now in the backfield for Oklahoma. Last season, they were not able to block for him. He did not have a great season, but people forget he's just 2 years removed off of a 1,300-yard season. So if that O-line can actually keep John Mateer up, block well, and better than they did last year, Jaden Ott's going to have a comeback season, and then John Mateer is going to lead the way, and this SEC is not ready for what Oklahoma is going to bring. So Oklahoma, Georgia Tech, and Iowa are the three teams I think were completely disrespected in this poll.
So it's funny that you bring them up because that's actually, I know we're going to do the SEC preview next week, but I actually really like what Oklahoma looks like, offensively. John Mateer is a under the radar quarterback. I think if he didn't lead all of the FBS in passing last year, he was right up there as far as numbers go. And then you mentioned Jay not being a sleeper. So Cal was actually going to be one of my sleeper teams before he ended up transferring to Oklahoma, because I was like, whatever their QB battle goes, they have a 5-star kid coming in, and then they also got Devin Brown transfer from Ohio State there. I was like, you pair either one of those guys in the backfield with Jaden Ott, he's going to have a monster year, but then he ultimately ends up going to Oklahoma. You pair him with Mateer. I'm 100% with you there. I do think Oklahoma can be a sleeper there. And then I'm also with you with the your first one, not Iowa, the first one you said, Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech.
I'm also with you with Georgia Tech. We talked about it last week with the ACC. I'm a big believer in Georgia Tech, and Haynes King is one of those guys who definitely can make a difference there. So I am 100% with you there. I didn't give the teams that I was necessarily that I thought were too high there. Two that stick out to me. The first one right away is Arizona State at 11. I get it. They bring back Sam Levitt. Like I 100% understand that. But the bell cow for that team was Cam Scatteraboo, and he is now in the NFL. And also, if you've been keeping up with and I'm sure we're going to talk about it today with it being the Big 12 show, if you've been keeping up with Arizona State, Kenny Dillingham has not had anything special to say about that bunch. He's talked about how bad the practices have been, how the team looks like they're just content off of, riding the coattails of last year's team. And, he basically was saying, don't be surprised if we're a bad team this year. And I think a coach saying that out the gate is, one, it could be used as like motivation to try to get the most out of your guys. And Kenny Dillingham is a great coach. So I do think that could be a part of it. But two, Kenny Dillingham doesn't seem like the kind of guy to just give you BS either. He seems like a very stand-up guy. And just from all the reports and everything that I'm seeing, Sam Levitt can be as great as he wants to be. If he doesn't have the weapons and things around him to have success, or they can't figure it out in the running game as well, I do think Arizona State has the potential to be one of those teams that kind of falls on their face in the future here moving forward. And the other one, I know I'll get some flack from this because I know you guys are both high on this team. I think Illinois is too high at 12. I understand what they bring back. I do think they're going to be a good team, and I may even be nitpicking here, but just kind of looking at the teams that are behind them, like I would take South Carolina over them. I take Florida over them. I take Tennessee over them, even without Nico. I do like Joey Aguilar being at Tennessee and being at the helm there. So, I mean, I would just scoot them back a little bit. I think 12 is a bad spot for them because I think it borderline puts the target on their back. Like they're that Indiana team from last year. Like you saw Michigan, how they how hard they fought that Indiana team, and it was like, all right, if we get this, like we're going to be a top 25 team. I think Illinois being at 12, that puts the bullseye right on them. And, I think as good as I think that team could potentially be, I think it's a little high to say 12 going into the start of the season.
I think it's crazy to think that 3 of the top 10 teams are still having quarterback battles. Obviously, we talked about earlier, Ohio State. You think Julian Sayin has locked up that spot, but according to Coach Day, they're still kind of battling it out between him and Keenholz. Keenholz is the more athletic, he said, and obviously Julian Sayin's got a cannon for an arm. And then you got Alabama. They still haven't announced their starting quarterback. I believe it's going to be Ty Simpson, though, if I'm not mistaken. And then we have Notre Dame. We don't know who's going to be their starting quarterback. You can't put, like I said, defending national champion. Yes, you got Jeremiah Love and a lot of pieces, but the guy who we thought was going to be a starting QB and Steve Angeli dipped over to Syracuse. So Notre Dame had to kind of put together a whole new game plan for this season, and I guess we're going to see how it turns out. But I'm surprised at this point in the offseason, this close to the season, that we still have 3 top 10 teams still really trying to piece together their starting quarterback and offense.
And Bill, I'm going to let you go like real quick here. There was one other thing, and I'm sure you have stuff to say about that too. There was the one other thing that you had mentioned about Penn State being like Ohio State and Michigan, of this year. The one thing that I didn't want to like gloss over with that is Penn State lost a lot too. So like, yes, you bring back Katron, you bring back Singleton, you bring back Aller, but you also look at it like you look at their receiving core last year. They lose a lot of those guys, and they didn't have production in that receiving room. Like Julian Fleming ultimately went on and went to the NFL. I'd say Penn State's a team that lost their best offensive and best defensive player in the same season. You lose Tyler Warren and you lose Abdul Carter on the other side. You lose Kobe King at the cornerback position. People thought that he was going to be a first, second round cornerback. Obviously, it didn't turn out to be that way once it all came out, but like that's still talent at the cornerback position that you're losing to the NFL there. With Ohio State, like I'm looking back at it, like Ohio State brought back 9 of their 11 starters on defense, and then they added in Caleb Downs. So they had their 9 starters plus Caleb Downs, and then they just had to figure out one spot. They also had the same DC that they've had the past 2 years. Penn State's in a position where they have a new DC coming in, and Jim Knowles is great. Like we don't win a national championship at Ohio State without Jim Knowles, but also me being an Ohio State fan, I saw how long it took for us to have Jim Knowles be that great defensive coordinator. He had been here since 2022, and it took until the Oregon game of this past year for him to really get his head out of his ass and learn how to, put together a scheme that fit his players there. So as great as I think Penn State is, I do think there is going to be somewhat of a curve there for them. And I think that game against Oregon week 4 is really when you'll know, because, they got 3 cupcakes. We talked about it on Wire to Wire on Wednesday. They got 3 cupcakes to start the year, but against Oregon, who obviously we saw how the first matchup went. Oregon's a team that can give Jim Knowles problems, and it's only the 4th game where they're having that defense installed. Like I think you may be looking at it, and if Oregon wins, and I'm not saying this will be the case, but if they win and they win rather comfortably, I think you're going to have people starting to look at Penn State a little bit sideways. And I don't know if that'll be the case. I just think there's going to be some growing pains there, installing a new defense and just figuring out who your guys are going to be.
Yeah, and I can't wait for that matchup, to be honest. So, Bill, I know you had some stuff you want to say, so please take it away.
No, I mean, I Notre Dame, I think it's going to be CJ Carr. I would be shocked if it's not. He's a 4-star kid. I think with what's-his-face transferring to Syracuse, that was kind of the writing on the wall there. Because I think with him playing in that game last year, I think he kind of earned himself a little bit of a chance to get the starting nod this year, and transferring out early. I think they made it pretty clear that it was going to be CJ or bust this year. But again, quarterback play is so important in college, like so incredibly important in college. And it's going to be a common theme, in my rankings anyway. Because I think if you look back the last couple of years, it's mattered tremendously. And I don't think this year is going to be any different. But that being said, he's going to be a redshirt freshman that is not played. And they don't have a daunting schedule, but they're not going to have the margin of error that they had last year with Riley Leonard to get them out of tough spots and stuff like that. Like they're, the other thing you have to remember too, Jeremiah Love is not going to sneak up on anybody this year. Everybody on this planet that watches football knows who Jeremiah Love is. So, I think Notre Dame, it's going to be a lot of people. I know they lost. I want to say they lost their starting either left tackle or right tackle already for the season, the torn ACL. Yep. So I'm not picking on Notre Dame because I don't like Notre Dame. I think they're going to be up against it a little bit this year. And I think 5 is just insanely too high for them with the question marks they have. The rest of it, like I said, I would push back on Arizona State a little bit. I think they're returning 9 starters on defense. I know Cam is a if you watch them play it all last year, he was the heart, the soul, and then some. An incredibly difficult piece to replace. But Sam Levitt's also going to be a year older, and he came up big in a bunch of big situations last year, and now he's a sophomore. And and again, I'm going to keep harping on it. I think quarterback play matters. And I think he steps up a little bit. And with Cottrell, I know you kind of circled back and went to it to kind of what I think it really is. That just sounds like Nick Saban 101 to me. We suck. These guys are still celebrating from last year. We can't tackle. We can't complete a pass. These kids don't care. I'm going to start all the bench kids. I don't think it's really that bad. So, we'll see. Weirder things have happened, and they very well easily, I guess, could be, some team that we don't see with 5 losses this year. Maybe they have 5 losses, but I think Arizona State's going to be okay. I think that defense being a very kind of junior and senior laden group now, I think that team is going to be really tough. I really do. But the rest of it, I think we got to play out. Oregon, we haven't really touched on. We, like Cottrell said, we did. Alex. Yeah, we did. We did bring it up on Wednesday on Wire to Wire. I think that Penn State Oregon game week 4 is going to be very telling on both sides. I think it's going to give us a really kind of a clear picture of what Penn State is as a whole and as a national championship contender. Because like Cottrell said, they're playing 3 absolute cupcakes, 1 through 3. Not saying you can't do it. We see it all the time, but most teams don't, play those 3 and then have to, play a national championship contender the 4th week. That's a tough switch to flip for me. I know it's going to be home. I know it's already been announced it's the whiteout game. I get all that. And that'll have its effect on Oregon. Don't get me wrong. I'll get to them in a second. But, I look at, I agree with Alex in the sense with Penn State. I think they return enough on the defense. We keep talking about how they lost their defensive coordinator, but that being said, they did bring in Jim Knowles, who is now a national champion winner in his own right, and he was a guy that was highly regarded for a long time before that. But Cottrell brought up points too. You saw it, not to bring up or take cheap shots, but it's it does take a year or 2 to kind of coach to your personnel. And Cottrell, admitted that. So it's going to be very interesting. I think that game is going to be very telling. And I think, I'll let Alex get into it more, but with Oregon, excuse me.
Bless you, sir.
Dante Moore's still a question mark. We can slice it however we want. I know we're all big fans of him. I was hoping he was going to sign with Michigan. He's from Michigan. I know Cottrell is a fan, and obviously Alex is as well. He was kind of one of the golden gooses of the transfer portal last year. I think we all think the world of him, but that being said, he's left a lot to be desired on the field. and walking into that environment, it is, if not the toughest, one of the top 2 or 3 toughest environments to play in all college football. So it's we're going to see what he's about in week 4 as well. So if he goes in there and looks rattled and Oregon doesn't look good, then maybe Oregon's too high. So we, like I said, that's gonna be a big barometer game for both teams, in many different ways. So it'll be interesting to see come week 4 when the dust settles there, how we view both Penn State and Oregon.
Yeah, I'm excited for that game.
Tell me about Oregon.
Well, I was going to save it all for the Big Ten show because I need 2 hours to talk about all the good stuff. But no, I mean, Dante Moore, I was watching a report from someone who watched him at UCLA and said that Dante Moore could make any throw on the field and that he had one of the best pure arm talents he'd ever seen. But the issue at UCLA was that he didn't make great decisions. And we saw that after his first couple games where he really took the nation by storm, he really regressed a little bit, had a lot of interception issues, which ended up leading to him being benched. I think coming to Oregon, taking a year, sitting last year behind Dylan Gabriel, I think was the best decision he could have made. He learned how to become a leader. He could learn how to speak up. He learned how to make good decisions. I think he made the best decision coming to Oregon. And with freshman DeCorian Moore, I always mess up his first name. Is that how you say it, DeCorian? I always fudge it up a little bit. And then you got a tight end like Kenyon Sadiq. I mean, this offense is – then you got Hughes from Tulane, the running back. Mackie Hughes just came in. I mean, this is going to be an absolute – oh, and you can't forget about D3 Heisman winner Jay Harris coming back for another year. Can't forget about my boy. There's Jay Harris.
There it is.
Oh, no, he's going to get actual carries. He's going to get carries this year, y'all. But no, there's a lot to be excited about. Not to mention, watching the spring game, the defense had a different look than I've ever seen an Oregon defense have. They were flying to the ball. They were getting penetration. The cornerbacks were covering well. The recruiting classes that the Ducks are bringing in, obviously, in the future, getting 5-star kids for the defense. I mean, this defense is going to be like night and day different from last season. I'm excited to see them in action. And we get to start it off against the number 2 FCS team in Montana State right off the get-go. So I'm excited to see that matchup. And like I said, this Oregon team, number 7, I'm not upset with the starting ranking because this is just preseason. They'll find a way to work their way up, especially with the Big Ten schedule. They'll find a way into the top 4, and I guarantee they're going to get to that Big Ten championship again. So I'm just excited, and I'm not mad at all with the 7 ranking.
Alex, I want you two things. One, I want you to never, ever say again that you have the number 2 FCS school on your schedule and you get to see what your team is from the get-go and your team is Oregon. Never, ever say that again. Good teams don't say that. And Oregon's a good team, so I know it's new territory for you, but good teams don't ever say that. So don't take that away from your vocabulary.
With Idaho, if you remember correctly, we beat Idaho last year, but 4 points in game 1. So I want to see against, and this is an actual tough competition for as far as whatever.
So I get it. No,
after Texas, who are you playing?
We got Texas week 1. I'm excited to see what my school looks like against Texas, not Montana Tech from the FCS.
Montana State, my man. Montana State, get it right. No disrespect.
Just kidding. But second thing though, you said your defense looked incredible in the spring game. Did they look incredible because the offense was struggling, or did they look incredible because they actually have incredible players? I think that is the one thing too that I'd be very curious to see, because I do think Oregon would have had a very high-powered offense, and I still do think that the opportunity will be there for them. I'm huge on DeCorian Moore. DeCorian Moore is an absolute monster. He will make a difference as a true freshman. But losing Evan Stewart potentially for the entire year, I do think that will be a big blow, and it's a lot to put the weight of an offense on a true freshman's shoulder. So I'm curious to see what that looks like.
Well, it's not going to be on a true freshman's shoulder. We're still going to run the ball like crazy as ever, especially with someone like Mackie Hughes in the backfield. And then and there is no other tight end in the country that you can say this about, but Kenyon Sadiq is the best tight end in the country this year. and you will see it with how he blocks. You'll see it with how he pass protects, and you will see it how he catches the ball and runs after. This dude, I guarantee, is going to have over 750 yards receiving. He's going to be the safety blanket for Dante Moore in situations where he needs to get the ball out quick. Keeps Kenyon Sadiq's name in the top of your brain, because I guarantee he's going to be the best tight end. Win the award for best tight end by the end of the season when it's all said and done.
He's
That's
got
my
him
last
winning
thing
the
I'm going to say.
Mackey. Okay. Got him winning
Just
the
saying.
Mackey. I like it.
A lot of hype. Anything else about the opening coaches poll before we kind of move on to a couple other pressing news before we get into some Big 12 stuff?
No, I mean, I think I don't like to buy into conspiracies, but, there's also the one, the networks just wanted to be able to say 1 versus 2 to start the season.
I was going to say that too, but I didn't want to.
And that's why they're there. So, like I said, I don't buy, I'm not saying that's where I have them ranked, but, I can hear an argument for both of them, obviously. So, but I'm sure that factored in a little bit to it.
What is it? First ever 1-2 opening week game?
Yeah, to start the year. So,
which network is that on when it airs? I forgot.
It'll be on Fox. That's Big Noon Kickoff, the Ohio State special.
That's right. The Big Noon. All right. Well, hey,
that's a travesty in itself.
Oh
yeah, it definitely should be the closing game.
I don't know how it's not the 7:30 game. I just don't understand.
Texas too scared.
Exactly. Yeah, Texas, exactly. You keep telling yourself that Texas is scared. Now, really, this Arch has a bunch of press conferences he wants to make time for after they destroy Ohio State. He wants to make sure he has plenty of time for him.
I mean, they offered it. I mean, tell Arch to ask Dylan Gabriel how that worked out for him.
Jeez Louise. Anyway, on to Pac-12 versus the Mountain West Conference. The Pac-12 Mountain West Conference tried to mediate a resolution. Pac-12 was suing over a $55 million penalty owed to the Mountain West Conference after the departure of Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, San Diego State, and Utah State. These are all essentially fees for these teams leaving to go to the new Pac-12. Like I said, this will the court date set for September 9th is a requested date, so they're trying to get this moving fast. They did try to mediate the situation. They were unable to. So we'll kind of see how that goes. And obviously, it's not going to play a role in the college football season, but that's a lot of money that could be changing hands. It's a lot of money on the table. You guys have any opinions on the matter, or is it just kind of another piece of news story?
So, I kind of have a question. That's kind of why I want to go first here. But don't these schools have like a buyout sort of clause? Like, isn't there some sort of agreement that needs to be met before they even leave to begin with? Like, wasn't the Pac-12 covering the money, whatever it would have paid to get them out of the Mountain West Conference, to begin with?
I would say, I'm not saying I know this to be true, but I know the bigger conferences probably always kind of had this, like, as a thing because it was always possible, I guess you could say. I don't know if these smaller conferences, ever worried about this. And
Pac-12?
Well, not the Mountain West though. I'm just saying from like that point of view, like, but to my knowledge, I was always under the impression that if you wanted to leave, there was buyout. You pretty much had to buy your freedom, in certain terms to be able to go and leave a conference and go somewhere else. So that's the impression that I'm under. And I feel like that stuff's probably pretty ironclad. I'm sure they'll argue, like the teams at the end will argue like, well, everybody else left. There wasn't going to be a Pac-12 anymore. So like, we shouldn't be held accountable. Like we had to go do what we had to do. But I don't know if that's going to hold up in court. I feel like the fact that it didn't get settled in mediation probably feels, the conference feels like they're in a really, really strong position. And they want to be made whole. So I am curious to see how it plays out. Because this has just kind of like become, the ugly side of college football athletics right now with just, it's a lot of money over everything else.
Well, I think it might set a precedent. I mean, if the Pac-12 does have to owe the Mountain West $55 million in poaching penalties, I mean, that's going to set a precedent for the other conferences that are trying to grow as well. Not to mention, you have countersuits by Utah State, Colorado State, and Boise State over their exit fees. That's part of that mediation. So they're getting to the Mountain West is trying to collect on fees for leaving and fees for poaching. So I think they have a good gripe for collecting the fees from Boise State and all those teams that are leaving. I don't really think the Pac-12 should be held liable. All they did was set out an option, lay out a plan, and these teams jumped at the chance to join a better financial opportunity for their schools in the long run. So, I don't know. Control, anything else to add?
No, I'm with you on that. I guess my one question for you, Alex, just kind of being that, West Coast, Pac-12 After Dark, that kind of thing. And I swear this isn't shade or anything like that. Like, honestly, I love having Oregon in the Big Ten. Like, outside of you guys being across the country, I feel like you guys belong. Big time school, adds another big time game on the schedule, all that. Would going back to the Pac-12, like, would that be something that would potentially interest you if it meant playing like Oregon State again? I know you're still playing them now, but like it meant playing Oregon State every year again. It meant playing Washington every year. I know you're in the Big Ten now. I don't know if that's a protected matchup or not, but like playing back in the Pac-12, like where, I mean, that was just home for Oregon. Do you think that'd be something that could potentially happen like down the line now that the Pac-12 is back alive?
No, I don't, because the Pac-12 is still going to be looked at as a subdivision, so it's not going to be looked at one of the Power 4 conferences. So until that changes, they're not going back. They're not going to go from a Power 4 conference to a subdivision conference. I think I might be using the wrong term when I say subdivision. But no, I think that the money wouldn't be there for a while they build up their I think they have a TV contract with the CW. I'm not sure what the financials look like on that, but I know that you don't want CW is not where you want your games playing on. And like I said, when you look at teams that are coming into that division or that conference, obviously you have Utah State, Boise State, and teams like that. They're not even close to on the same level as Oregon, so it would just be like a cakewalk every single year. And I think taking a step back in competition like that, that's where you start losing recruits and losing big time money. So I don't think it's ever going to go back to the way it was. I think you would have to have Washington. I think you'd have to have all the original Pac-10 members would have to go back to even. Yeah, you have to have all those go back to even be a realistic option, in my opinion. It's a lot of money.
No, I get it. I just didn't know. Like, again, I don't know what. Like, for example, the whiteout game. We know it's the whiteout. But like games like that against Penn State, like those are gonna like noon kickoffs for you guys is 9 a.m. So like I didn't know if it would be people are gonna wake up and watch your team whatever time you're playing. But I just didn't know you as a fan of like those rivalries and things like that, seeing those matchups, if you can get the band back together per se, if that would be something that kind of interests you, or is it like, hey, we're with the big dogs now in the Big Ten. We get the national attention. And not saying you didn't before, but like we're in those conversations with the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Penn States, like those big time brands in college football.
Yeah, no, I mean, the Washington matchup every year is protected. So just like Ohio State and Michigan are going to play every year, Oregon and Washington will always close their season out against each other. And with the way that they've worked with Oregon State, you're always going to see Oregon and Oregon State play each other. And those are the two rivalries that you want to keep intact. And those have already those have already been set in stone that those are not going anywhere. Obviously, the USC rivalry, the Arizona rivalry, the Arizona State rivalries, like those are fantastic and memorable matchups I would love to see again. I can't count how many times Arizona has beaten the Ducks when the Ducks are on the cusp of a national championship berth or a top seed berth. Like so many rivalry games that come to my mind.
For sure.
But I think the two that are the most important were kept, Washington and Oregon State. And I think I would love, obviously we're going to see USC probably once every 2 years or two out of every other year or whatever it works out to be. We're still going to get those rivalries. Same with UCLA. And I wouldn't mind honestly having like an out of conference matchup against the Big 12, maybe like once a year, see Utah, see Arizona once every 5 years. I wouldn't mind those matchups, but I'm not going to miss them being an every year thing. That's just me. All right. Anything else about the lawsuit before we kind of move on to a little bit of Big 12 news and then we jump into the Big 12 for the rest of the show?
Nope. Got nothing.
All right.
I got
Well,
nothing.
Matt Campbell over Iowa State has been extended. Now, this man, he is extended to 2032. The new deal includes a $5 million per year salary, a $1 million increase from his previous contract, and obviously he has thresholds and bonuses for conference standings and appearance in Big 12 championship games for him to earn additional money. But I think, hey, after last year making it to the Big 12 championship, I think this has got to be a well-earned raise. And realistically, looking at coaches in the same conference, I think they got him for a pretty damn good deal, considering how the success he had last year. Any opinions on the Matt Campbell signing or extension?
I think it's a great signing for the school. It obviously gives him security. I think he could probably make more money somewhere else. But he's come up in conversations before for some pretty high profile jobs. Michigan being one of them. He's a younger coach that's on definitely on the right track. And I would say probably overachieves with what he has every year, which makes him very attractive to the bigger schools. So, to see what he could do with, 5- and 4-star recruits all the time. So I think it's a great move for the school. Like you said, coming off the conference championship appearance last year. I think they won 11 games last year, which was, I think, the most ever in a season. It's a school record. So, he is, I will give him credit in this, that he is seemed to be very dedicated and loyal to that school and really wanting to win and kind of succeed there. So I think it's a very happy marriage. I don't know what his buyout clause is, but, if it's not something crazy, I think his name will continue to always come up if a big job opening happens. But he seems to be very happy there. So, I think it's, like I said, I think it's a very good marriage for both sides. And I think both sides are very happy. And I think it's good for Iowa State football.
So I don't know what is in the water in the state of Iowa, but their main two schools in Iowa and Iowa State, I mean, those have got to be two of the best jobs in the country. And I don't mean it in the sense of, programs or anything like that, but like Matt Campbell is a guy who, to his credit, I do think he overachieves what he has there. But he's in a spot where there's never any true expectations on the team. Like, it's never, let's go to the college football playoff or let's be a true championship contender. It's like, all right, let's win some games. Let's get bowl eligible. If we can make it to a conference championship game, like how you guys alluded to, that he did last year, cool. They lost. They got blew out the water by Arizona State. But it's like, all right, we made it there. Like, we're good to go. And every year, Matt Campbell's name is, like you said, one of those names that gets brought up in these conversations for jobs, and not just jobs at the college level. He gets looks at, from the NFL side of things. People have brought him in for interviews on the NFL side. So for you to really just get a raise just from keeping things status quo there, yes, he has been loyal. I do think that he probably could have had an opportunity to go somewhere else at a time, but man, I mean, that sounds like a great job to me. You don't have to ever, improve per se. You just keep everything status quo. You win a few games and, you're really set for life in Iowa, whether it be Iowa or Iowa State.
Well, when asked, why he didn't get a bigger call, why he didn't ask for more money, he said, "Hey, my players are taking sacrifices with their NIL earnings to stay here at this university. So why wouldn't I sacrifice to stay here and coach them?" So he's definitely got the right mindset for coaching the college level and coaching the Iowa State. And I think the Iowa State has got to be happy after hearing that with him signing that 5-year extension. Dude, that is all we have for Break the Huddle today, guys.
All right. Well, it's a bunch of good topics as usual. Good talking points. That will get, it'll get even more interesting as we get closer to the season because, more and more things will be coming out that we need to discuss. So that being said, we're going to jump right into the Big 12 preview. I think it's a little bit less convoluted, I think, than the ACC. I think we could all agree on. But we're going to preview, just like we did last week. We're going to preview a bunch of teams, go over the schedules, break them down, and then we'll say who we have in the championship game and dark horses and all that good stuff. So, Alex, where are we starting here, sir?
We're going to start where it all ended last year, and it's Arizona State, obviously former Big 12 champion. We're going to start with them. Obviously, they were the highest-ranked Big 12 team currently in the standings, and they start their season off at Northern Arizona to start the season off. But, guys, what's your opinion on Arizona State? I mean, as far as entering this year, before we go into the schedule, what's your initial reaction? I know you guys said a little bit while we were going through the top 25. But anything else you kind of want to elaborate on as far as Sam Levitt goes, the offense, the defense, Coach Dillingham?
It's not an easy schedule. I will tell you, as the season progresses, there's probably a couple teams on here that will have numbers next to their names by the time they play. Again, I still think Arizona State's one of the best teams in the conference, hands down. Like I said in the preview, I know they lost Cam, but I think they have arguably the best quarterback in the conference. They have a great coach, like Cottrell said, and they're going to lean on that defense. They have 9 returning starters on that defense. So, I think Northern Arizona is obviously going to be, a cakewalk. I'm surprised they're not playing East Texas A&M like everybody else is. At Mississippi State, it's an SEC opponent. I don't think they're going to be as down as they have been in the past. I still think Arizona State should win that game, but you go on the road against the SEC, and that's never easy. Texas State, I think they should win that game. And then they go a real interesting stretch there. At Baylor, who I'm sure we're going to talk about here shortly. Home TCU, at Utah, never an easy place to play. And then versus Texas Tech, Houston, and Iowa State, even West Virginia. I don't think they don't have an easy game. I think until the last two there with Colorado and Arizona after they get through their non-conference. I think it's a doable and it's a very workable schedule, but at the same time, I think it's there's some tough games in there.
Cottrell, how about you, buddy?
Yeah. I mean, I think Arizona State's schedule is definitely tough here, and I do think that they have the opportunity to build some momentum, but even some of the ones that you didn't mention there, like I don't necessarily think Mississippi State's going to be a good team, but going to Mississippi State's not going to necessarily be easy to play, especially earlier on in the year. And while I don't think they're going to lose to Texas State was a really good football team last year. I believe they went 10-2 all of last year, and they won their conference. So Texas State is definitely going to be a good one. And, I think the Big 12 this year, we're going to get into it here, but I think the Big 12 as a whole can really be a crapshoot. Like you have teams like, Texas Tech or West Virginia, like you mentioned, or even Utah. Like Utah's a team that's been perennially, you always know Utah's a good football team, but like Cam Rising will finally no longer be there. Like he's been there since the Reagan administration, and now they got to find a new quarterback. So you just don't know what you're going to get. You're going to have a really good defensive team at Utah, but you don't know what the offense looks like. So curious to see what Arizona State's new identity is now that Cam is gone. But time will definitely tell.
Well, I'm going to tell you what the new identity is going to be. They're going to air the ball out like crazy, and it's going to be between Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson. Man, last year, I think this connection could be the best returning connection in the country. And I say returning, all right? I think last year, I think the best returning connection was Noah Fafita and Tet McMillan. And we saw week 1, they combined together for over 200 yards combined with 4 touchdowns. It was an absolutely amazing game. And I think Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson have that kind of relationship. Jordan Tyson's 6'2". He had over 1,000 yards receiving last year, 10 touchdowns. Dude really knows how to take it down the field. And yeah, you are losing Cam Scadaboo this season, but you do replace it with a very experienced running back and a guy like Kanye Udo from Army, who had 1,100 yards rushing last year. Granted, I know Army runs the ball like 95% of the time, which is quite easy to rack up those yards. But if you remember last year, Army's focal point was their quarterback running the ball. And last year, Kanye Udo had a game against Tulsa where he only ran the ball 6 times for 137 yards and 2 touchdowns. So like the dude's a baller. And I'm just excited to see how that dynamic kind of play into it. He doesn't have the hands in the receiving game that Cam Scadaboo had, but I think running the ball, he's going to be just as effective. He gets low to the ground. He's not afraid to run into contact and kind of push forward for those extra yards. He's got a very, very tough. He's got that bowling ball mentality. He'll run you over to get those extra yards. And then Sam Levitt, 3,000 yards last year. I think this season he gets closer to 4,000. 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. When you're returning that kind of production of a first-year starter, that extra year of maturity, the extra year of experience, and especially the experience of the college football playoff, I think he's gonna what's the word I'm looking for? He's gonna take that huge step forward this season, and I think he's gonna be a huge reason why Arizona State has a successful season. And you also got to look, guys. They don't play BYU. They don't play K-State, and they don't play Kansas. And Kansas is a team we got to watch out for this year also. So 3 of the top teams that are talked about, because BYU is ranked, of course, are not on this schedule. So I think that you guys say they have a daunting schedule. I think their schedule could have been a lot worse. And as far as Texas State goes, 70% of their production transferred out to better situations because Texas State had such a fantastic year last year. So I don't know what Texas State's going to look like. So after Mississippi State, you got Baylor and TCU. That's a tough stretch. And then obviously you go to Utah, and we all know, as Bill says, Utah is a whole nother animal to play in. I think Bill said that at least 4 times last year, and each time he said it, it was truer than the last time. So that's something to look out for. But when you look at Utah, what I'm really excited for Utah is their new starting quarterback. God, what is his name? I had it in my notes, and I lost it. Now I'm all set. Here we go. Devin Dampierre. All right, he transferred in from New Mexico. He just under 3,000 yards last season, but he ran for over 1,100 yards. So if you remember when Cam Rising, before his injuries, he was running for 400-500 yard seasons, and that was when Utah was really competitive in the Pac-12, back-to-back Pac-12 championships, and 2 Rose Bowl appearances. I honestly believe that this version of Utah, if the defense, because the defense is going to be fantastic as always, I think this version of Utah could be more dangerous than when Cam Rising was at the helm. So I think that could be a game, especially on the road, that they could slip up.
The only pushback I would give you is kind of like what I said at the beginning here. I know you're not. I mean, K-State is the obvious one, who I'm assuming we're going to talk about next. I think we all agree BYU is probably not ranked at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And then I think that next group of teams, when we get beneath Arizona State and K-State, a lot of people that are, call them dark horse, darlings, whatever you want to call them. That next group of teams that everybody's going to mention are going to be Baylor, Texas Tech, and Iowa State. They're going to be the 3 big ones, and they play 2 of the 3 of them away. So, I think it looks by week 4 or 5, I think a couple of these teams might have, ranking numbers next to them. And then I think that, I think the schedule will look completely different, but it's definitely, like I said, I don't think it's impossible, but it's tough. It's a tough schedule.
Control, anything else you want to add about Arizona? Actually, let's just go through the schedule really quick, really fast. We won't take as much time as we did last week, but what do we think about the Northern Arizona game? Think that's a win?
That's a win.
Okay. Going to the SEC territory, Mississippi State.
Win
As well. Texas State losing a lot of production last year.
Win.
I think that's got to be a win. Then here's probably the biggest test so far in the season at Baylor.
Loss.
I'll say they win, but they don't cover.
They'll
They'll be favored.
You think there'll be favor on the road against that Baylor team?
I do because do we have Baylor's schedule?
Nope. But I can get it if we would need it. But no. I mean, Baylor's got Sawyer Robinson coming back, over 3,000 yards passing, 28 touchdowns. I mean, I like Baylor a lot. I just don't know. A lot more questions about Baylor than I have answers, I feel like.
Well, here you go. Baylor opens at home against Auburn. Jesus. Then they go to SMU.
Yep.
Then they're home against Samford, and then home against Arizona State. So, yeah, I mean, we'll know what Baylor is by then. I'll tell you that much.
Yep.
So,
Sure.
Yeah, opening the season against Auburn. That's gonna be a good measuring stick.
And then they
go
they go to SMU right after that. So,
right.
Yeah. So again, it'll probably be a low spread game. I'll say Arizona State pulls it out, but if we end up siding with a loss there, I'm fine with it.
I think they win that game against Baylor. So I'm not quite sold yet. I need to see that game against Auburn to really put my chips behind Baylor. So that starts about 4-0 before they go to TCU.
That's a win.
Win.
I don't know, man. TCU has one of the best returning quarterbacks in the conference. Obviously, 2 out of 3, though. We're going to give that a win. Then they go to Utah. So they have a bye week after TCU before Utah, just so we're clear.
Loss
Loss at Utah?
I'll say win.
I'm going to go with a loss there. I think that the mobility of Utah's quarterback is going to be a huge play. Plus, playing in that stadium is no joke. So I think that's going to be their first loss of the season. Even coming off of a bye, it's hard to prepare for that sort of environment. Then they go against Texas Tech, who is currently ranked, I believe, 24 in the coaches' preseason poll. I didn't put the rankings on there, but they are currently ranked. The Texas Tech hopes are high there. What are we feeling like at a home game against Texas Tech?
Loss.
Ooh, see, if this is away, I would definitely agree. I think at home, I think they beat Texas Tech.
Yeah, I mean, I think they beat Texas Tech as well. Again, I'm not sold on these teams that spend a lot of money in the transfer portal. I think it takes a little bit to gel as a team, and I'm not really. Even though this is a halfway point in the season, I think Arizona State is just. I think Arizona State wins this game. And then we got Houston.
Houston's another team that a lot of people think could be sneaky good, but again, at home, I like Houston.
I like Arizona State.
Arizona State. Sorry.
I know what you meant. And then they have a bye after Houston before going on the road to Iowa State.
I think they lose at Iowa State.
See, I think they win at Iowa State. I think Rocco Becht is a fantastic quarterback, and I think Campbell is a fantastic coach for there. But they got to replace 2, not 1, but 2 1,000-yard receivers this year with really a bunch of unknown names. So I think that's a lot of production to return, and I think Arizona State's going to win that game.
I like Iowa State.
Just wanted to do that just to disagree with me. Fine. That's an L. So that's 2 losses so far for Arizona State. God, you're such a – yeah. All right. Then we got West Virginia at home.
Win.
I think it's a win as well. Cottrell, any disagreement there?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. All right. Then they go on the road to Depends Stadium. I make that joke because Deion Sanders made that joke. To play Colorado, and a team that we really don't know a lot about either.
I don't know anything about Colorado. It should be a win.
Yeah, I think so. It's got to be a win. And then they play the rivalry game. And rivalry games are always tricky. Second-year coach Brent Brennan, obviously terrible first year. Noah Fafita is back, but he doesn't have his number 1 receiver in Ted McMillan, who's now in the NFL. But it's still a rivalry game. That could make or break the season. So far, we have 2 losses, and they're both in-conference losses. So this game could make or break the conference championship hopes.
Win.
Okay.
I have no hopes for. I know they brought back Fafita, but I have no hopes this year for Arizona. Seeing what they were last year, even with Tet, lets me know that that's just not a good bunch there.
I agree. I think it's a win.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think really the only bright spot for Arizona for me is that actually it's funny. We just talked about Texas State. They landed Ishmael Mahdi, the running back from Texas State last year. He had
The monster.
23. He had 2,300 yards over the last 2 years at Texas State combined. So like I said, I think dude's an absolute beast. And honestly, I think if Arizona doesn't have a good season this year, and I'm being good as in like above 500 and competing for a conference championship, I think Brent Brennan's tenure at Arizona ends very quickly. I'm already putting him on the hot seat.
Could be. I mean, Feet will be gone, and I don't think they have any like big time recruits on the way. So if you're going to be a coach, and this is not the NFL. Like, if you have a recruit and you bring them in, these colleges will hold you. Because they don't want the big time prospect to leave. I mean, look at Billy Napier as prime example. So
numero uno example.
So we also got to think about if Arizona State has the season that we say they're going to have, being a 10-2 team, you can't be sitting idly by while your closest competitor and rival continues to dominate the new conference. Like you want to keep up with them. And so 2 losing seasons in a row under a new coach, you got to definitely make a move and bring somebody else in. But I digress.
10-2, that would put them, I mean, they would have a shot at the conference. I personally have them at 8-4 for the year, but
I think they're 9-3 at worst. I think 10-2, 11-1 is probably best case scenario.
Yeah, I'm on board with the 10-2.
I don't 4 losses is a lot.
Baylor, Utah, Texas Tech, Iowa State. I think 3 on the road, and I just think Texas Tech's going to be better.
Well, if they have 3 conference losses, they're definitely not in the conference championship game. That's for sure.
For sure.
Let me see who else we're looking at today. We're also looking at. Hey, Bill called it. We're jumping over to
Who else are we looking at? Your favorite team, second favorite team,
second favorite team,
favorite quarterback,
third favorite team, number 1 quarterback. It goes Oregon, Iowa, Kansas State. All right, let's get it right. UAB's in there somewhere. But no, Kansas State, obviously, high hopes last year. Didn't quite turn out how they wanted to. I guess we could always claim Will Howard as Kansas State, just like y'all do with Quinn Ewers and all that, and then Joe Burrow.
Boy.
I mean, I wouldn't mind Kansas State claiming Will Howard. I mean, that's where we didn't develop him. We just made him a champion.
You're welcome. Anyway, Kansas State does start off the season in Ireland against Iowa State. So it is a game over the pond. Obviously, last year we saw, who was it? Georgia Tech and Florida State in Ireland, and that was a huge upset. He wasn't didn't end up being a huge upset, but at the time it seemed like it was. So that'll be a great start. I think Kansas State versus Iowa State, that'll be a great game in Ireland. But I'm excited for this team. Like, I truly am. Avery Johnson with his second full season as the full-time starter. Obviously, he was kind of the Swiss Army guy his first year when Will Howard was the everyday quarterback. I think Avery Johnson, he just needs to kind of improve on his decision making, and I think that this is the year he does it. I mean, what are you guys seeing from the Kansas State camp as you guys kind of did your research and all that good stuff?
I mean, I would agree. I think there's expectations for sure this year. I think with Avery back, like you said, being a second-year starter, with what they have coming back on both sides of the ball, I don't think this is – I feel like a lot of the times we just expect Kansas State to kind of be like 8-4. They hover around between 21 and 25 in the polls, and I feel like a lot of times that's, acceptable to them to be – just kind of like we were talking about earlier with Iowa State and Iowa. I feel like Kansas State's just happy to kind of be ranked and looked at as like, a really good program and, not a lead or anything like that. But I read a bunch of stuff from writers that actually cover the team. And I would say that's the one feeling that I got, out of all those articles was there's really like a sense of urgency this year. Like 8-4, I don't think 8-4 is going to cut it this year for them. I think they really they think they have an absolute superstar in Avery, and they're expected to win a lot of football games this year. So
I agree, Bill.
I'd be really curious to see how this season plays out for them.
I mean, yeah, you talk about Avery all you want to. I mean, I think the bigger piece is you have Dylan Edwards coming back for another year. I think that offense will go as he goes, and ultimately, if he can be as explosive as he was last year, or even better than what he was last year, I think that's going to give Kansas State a real shot here. I think the big thing though is one of the points that Alex had brought up, and is Avery Johnson going to clean up on his turnovers from last year. There were games last year where it felt like Kansas State were in, and they were on the right side of some of them. But then there were other games where it felt like they were really Avery Johnson mistake away from losing the football game. Like the one that comes to mind particularly would be the game against Colorado. Kansas State had no business having a close game with Colorado. Avery made a couple questionable decisions and kept that game close. And Kansas State ultimately ended up pulling it out, but that's just something that can't happen there. And then I think the other game, pretty sure they played BYU last year and lost, correct?
Yeah, it was the first loss of the season. Yeah,
and Avery did not play well in that game either. Granted, BYU was a good football team there, and I think some of that is okay, against good teams. But I think this year, with it being your second year as a starter, with you now being looked at as a junior at this point, for a team that has expectations, you're going to have to show up in those kinds of games. So time will tell ultimately if that's something that'll happen.
Actually, fun. I have fun stat for you based off of the information you were just talking about. Kansas State last year, when they had 2 or more turnovers, it happened 5 times. They are 1-4 in games committing 2 or more turnovers, 9-0 with 1 or less. So that right there is just what you said is a huge key to their victories. And every single loss, you had two interceptions from Avery Johnson, and they were never inopportune moments. The other thing about Avery Johnson is he had the highest drop rate of any Big 12 quarterback. He had 6.4% of his passes were dropped last year. So if they can get some improved wide receiver play, and I expect it to happen, especially with Jace Brown, number 1 target from last year, 47 catches, 823 yards, 5 touchdowns. Look for that number to double, as Avery Johnson's going to be going to him a lot. I expect him to have double-digit touchdowns this year and over 1,000 yards. That's the type of receiver Jace Brown is. And then, of course, just like you said, Dylan Edwards returning. He had over 600 yards last year, averaging 7 yards a carry. And then even in the passing game, he was averaging over 7 yards per catch with 7 combined touchdowns between rushing and the receiving. So definitely has the weapons. The defense has some questions I'm kind of curious about, as they have to return a couple members of their secondary. But the secondary did get a start in their bowl game, and they looked good. So I know there's a really high, ceiling for that defense can do. And Chris Kleiman, man, he is one of the best coaches in the country when it comes to making adjustments. They outscored their opponents last year in the third quarter, 110-53, which is a focal point on his coaching style. Is learning in the first half, making adjustments in the second half. And if they can combine that with a more mature Avery Johnson that runs when it's smart to run, that doesn't take the big hits, because last year he took a few hits that I thought might have knocked him out of games, and even the season, how hard he got hit. If he can make smart decisions when he's running the ball, reduce turnovers, throw the ball away instead of trying to be young and impress everybody and fit the ball into tight spots, and Dylan Edwards can continue the pace he's setting, I see the sky's the limit for this Kansas State team. I don't think this is a national championship winning team. This is definitely a Big 12 champion team and definitely a college football playoff berth team. And that's how I see it. So anything else you guys want to talk about before we just jump into the schedule?
Let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
Well, hey, week 1, obviously traveling across to another country, that's always tough on the players. Going to Ireland for week 1 against Iowa State. How are we feeling?
Why do teams that are like so close to each other be like, you know what? Let's pack up all our shit.
Let's go to Ireland
and spend a lot of money and go fly and let's go play in Ireland instead. I don't understand. I don't get it.
I don't.
And neither one of these teams have any connection to Ireland.
Right.
So whatever.
Notre Dame made sense. Notre Dame made sense last year. Florida State and Georgia Tech. Like, I hate that they start the season with an in-conference game in another country. Like that's what blows my mind. Go to another country if you want
Yeah.
to, but don't do a conference game.
For sure.
Like that's what blows my mind.
I would
I'm
not
with
want to. I would not want to play a conference game. To
Like if
start
it was
the
Kansas
year.
State Army, like okay, cool,
Yeah,
whatever.
sure.
Send them to Ireland.
Yeah, North Dakota, Iowa State. Cool.
No,
whatever.
don't send North Dakota to Iowa. I mean to Ireland. No, they don't. No, because then you got to pay for it too. You got to cover their expenses. No, that's
Okay.
going to be.
You're right. You're right.
Um,
Iowa State, obviously, they lost the two main wide receivers. What do you think that game's going to look like?
I think it's going to be a little bit lower scoring than people think. Because I think Iowa State's going to be a very good defense. I think the question mark with Iowa State, like you said, is how they're going to move the ball, when they're not running it. Whereas K-State, I think, is the opposite. I think K-State's offense is definitely the unit with the the lesser amount of question marks outside of Avery Johnson's decision making. Could Rocco throw the ball against Kansas State? I think it's going to be interesting. I think it's a really close game. I know we're going to pick one here, but I could see either team winning that game.
I'm rolling with Iowa State in this one.
Wow.
You give Matt Campbell time to put together a game plan against the Kansas State defense that you don't know what it's gonna look like. I mean, I think it has the potential to be a exciting game, similar to what we saw last year in Ireland. And until otherwise, in the big games, if it's tight, I need to see if Avery's gonna hold on to the ball. So I'll take Iowa State in Ireland.
See, I think you're just being spiteful at this point. Iowa State is losing 2,000-yard receivers, and their defensive line or their defense finished last in the Big 12 in sacks per game.
And they still made it to the conference championship game.
Yes, but their offensive weapons are gone. Kansas State is returning solidarity. Kansas State is returning
those guys that you said can't catch. You said he led the league in drop passes. So all those guys that can't catch, they're back this year. Still not being able to catch.
Only one. Jace Brown's the only one, and he wasn't the one dropping the ball.
You just said they brought back everybody. So what argument are we making?
I didn't say that. I said Jace Brown is the returning wide receiver.
All right.
I didn't say anything.
Cottrell picked Iowa State. You're clearly picking Kansas State, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Iowa State's going to win. Next game.
What just happened?
I like Iowa State. You convinced me.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Let me guess. North Dakota's going to win too?
No, we got Kansas State.
No,
Avery Johnson's going to be on the Heisman campaign after this game.
Yeah, just game. He'll 6 rushing touchdowns by half.
Yep.
Army.
Hair flowing.
Win.
Army's a win.
Win.
At Arizona.
Win.
Okay. Versus UCF.
Win.
Obviously, Scott Frost is back, but that's really about it. They've even said on their homepage that this year is a rebuilding year. They even acknowledged it like 7 times in the Beat Writers article for UCF. Baylor. Obviously, this is one that Cottrell you're pretty high on. I think Kansas State wins this game, for obvious reasons.
I got Baylor.
Bill, you better watch the words that come out of your mouth.
Understand the words coming out of my mouth. This is kind of like the great unknown because we just don't know what Baylor is yet. I mean, if Baylor starts the year 2-0 against those two teams, then I'd be all over Baylor in this game. It's at Baylor. I'm going Baylor.
Okay. All right. Whatever. 3-2. 4-2.
Whatever. You guys are just shit on my national champion. Whatever.
I'm gonna go. I said they weren't national championship contenders, but they were Big 12 championship contenders. Jeez. All right. Versus TCU.
Win.
Hey, look at you guys synchronized. At Kansas. I think this is honestly the best game of the year on Kansas State's schedule and for Kansas City. I think this game is going to be a slobber knocker, and I'm excited for it. But at Kansas,
slobber knocker.
There should be defense played for it to be a slobber knocker.
I I'm picking Kansas State. Kansas, I'm not. People are high on Kansas. I'm not that
I like
high on them.
Kansas.
You lose Devin Neal, and you weren't really that good last year. I get it. It was a down year for them, but Daniels coming back. Obviously, love Daniels, but I've seen what that team looks like with him at his best, and with Neal next to him, and I don't know. I feel like I've seen them at their peak already. So I'm rolling with Kansas State in this one.
Bill?
They did finish that season on a tear, but to Cottrell's point, I think Neal not being there, it's a lot for me. I'm going Kansas State.
Yeah, obviously we're putting Kansas State W on this one, but I'm excited for this game. I am excited for Kansas this season. We might even get to look at them here in a second. But Jalen Daniels coming back for his 6th year. Experience speaks volumes. Obviously, I like him if he's coming back for a 6th year.
I was about to say.
And also, you guys forget, though, y'all talking about Daniel Highshaw. You can't forget that they also had senior running back LaShawn Williams transferring from Iowa. And last year, he was injured most of the year, 820 yards in 2023. So, like I said, keep an eye out. I think that this Kansas seems to be better than last season. Just saying, but I do think they're going to win that game. Then they play Texas Tech, which
Lost.
they will be. Okay.
What were you about to say though? They're about to be playing what?
Oh no, I was going to say this is after their bye week, but their bye week is before the Kansas game.
Especially
we have them with 2 losses, right? Yeah.
Especially if they're coming off of a grueling game against Kansas, the slobber knocker that you speak
A
of.
slobber knocker per se? Perhaps a slobber knocker.
Yeah, I think back to back. I'm rolling with Texas Tech.
You know what? I'm going Kansas State here because I think with everything Texas Tech did, I still think they're a year away. So I will go Kansas State here.
I love that pick, Bill. I love it. Hey, just
Who you rolling with?
We should have a segment called Slobber Knocker of the Week. Well, that's like best defensive matchup of the week. Just saying, throwing it out there now. I got to go with Kansas State.
People are
you think of what?
Nah, people are going to log on thinking we're going to show like porn clip of the week or something. I just don't think it's a good idea.
Week 7 was when that starts, Bill. Week 7. No, I'm going to tell you guys, I'll be honest with you right now. I have Kansas State winning every game on the schedule. So I'm just going to say right now, win.
So wait, you're telling me they're going to go undefeated, but you're telling me they're not a legit national title contender then?
Yeah, because I don't think that they beat Oregon. I don't think they beat Ohio State. I don't think that they beat – I think in the Big 12, they're the best team in the Big 12 hands down. Do I think that they beat Texas? No. Do I think they beat – I think that's a fair assessment.
I think they beat
Clemson? No. But as far as Big 12 teams go and what they have in front of them on the field, besides the game against Baylor and Kansas are my only 2 games I think they may have struggles with. Other than that, I think that they run the table.
I didn't realize this is what we were up against here, Cottrell.
Hey, you said the same thing last year with SMU, remember?
I don't remember you saying SMU was going to go undefeated and win the conference.
Because they didn't go undefeated, and I did say they'd be in the conference title game. But Kansas State's going to win the conference, hands down. I already put money on it. It's done. The house, it's up. It's up on the market, man. It's been put on Kansas State winning it. Spare
change.
All right, well, I'll make this easy. I think they win their last 3 games.
Yeah, I do as well.
I do as well.
I think they win. I think Utah will be a tough trip because it will be cold then. Like Alex alluded to earlier, how I feel about Utah in November and December for football games.
Yep.
But I think I think they pull that game out. So
yeah, I got them in the last 3 as well.
So I guess
that again puts them at 10-2 with 2 division losses, 2 conference losses.
But I personally would have them at 9-3. I do think they lose Texas Tech, and they lose to Baylor, and then first game against Iowa State.
You can't. Okay, can you just admit that you're trolling right now? You don't believe Iowa State is going to beat Kansas State.
I do.
I'm gonna see what the line is right now. K-State versus Iowa State. All right. Let's see what the line is, if it's out yet.
It's got to be out. It's week
It's
one.
got to be out. So, yeah, say it's week 1. It's got to be.
So 2.5 points.
Oh, my
To
God.
who?
That's just some. That's
To
just
who?
some.
Kansas State.
Is minus 2.5?
Yes.
All right.
You
so
know what they
minus
say.
two-
You know what they
minus-
say, Bill. Minus 2.5. Those are the.
That's a Gene special right there.
That's the Gene special.
That is a Gene special. Just a minus 2.5 on a neutral field. I mean, they literally think it's a field goal game. So that is far from some. That's a 52-48%
Slobber knocker.
Slobber knocker.
52-48 slobber knocker.
I'm going to tell you
Welcome
right
back
now.
to Dublin, Ireland, and the slobber knocker that's broken out between Kansas State and Iowa State.
Look, I'm going to tell you right now. I'm just going to lock this in as my lock of the week when this game happens. Kansas State. I'm sure that line will shift by that time that comes around. But so we have about 10-2 cumulatively between us three picking, and I think that with 2 conference losses, it's going to be tough. I think that might be enough though. Depending on some other teams too. But
Mike,
anything else about Kansas State before we go on to?
let's get back to earth. Let's get back to earth. Who we got next?
Kansas. Looking at Kansas's schedule, and then we got Colorado's schedule, and then just because Colorado. First off, I listed all 4 teams' schedule that I made. I said, "Do we want any more?" Cottrell said, "Nah, not necessary."
Yep.
This one ain't necessary.
I think this is necessary. Absolutely necessary.
Colorado's sure as hell not necessary.
Colorado has entertainment factor, and the people want to see us talk about Colorado. The people want to know about Deion Sanders and the new team without Shador, without Travis. They want to hear our opinion, Bill.
I'm gonna tell you yes, but for not the right reasons. That's what I'm gonna tell you. There's gonna be a lot of haters out there that are gonna be very happy that Colorado's down this year. That's what I'm gonna tell you.
Well, Cottrell, what was it you posted? You sent us. It was like the most bet on futures.
Over
was
unders.
Number one was
yeah.
And the most bet on over was Colorado over 5.5, and the most bet on under was Colorado 5.5. Like, that had me rolling on the floor at work that they could both be number one. Like, what? Like, that's such a wide disparity in public opinion as far as what this Colorado team's going to be. Anyway, we're talking about Kansas right now, though.
All right, let's go to Colorado. Why are we doing Kansas?
I said I made Kansas one. You guys were like, all right, cool. Bill's like, ignore.
Jalen Daniels.
It definitely wasn't ignored, but I was just busy, and I definitely did not catch this while we were going through it.
Look, man, this Kansas team is going to be good. All right, you just got to accept it, Bill.
No,
this team is
they're
going to be
not.
in the pocket. Yes, they made noise at the end of last season, winning 3 straight games against ranked opponents, and that's who we're going to see this year from the get-go from Kansas with Jalen Daniels, 6-year guy. He's got the experience. He's got the motivation.
We found it, Bill. 6th-year guy. You know he's
got
to be in the spotlight.
You know I love my senior citizens when they're quarterbacking. You know I love it.
Let me guess. Oklahoma State's your sleeper?
No. They're playing Oregon week 2.
Oh, okay.
It'll be Daniels will be at Oregon next year.
Look, Jalen. All right, we can skip Kansas. We can go straight to Colorado.
Let's just go. Let's go through their schedule here.
At this point, Fresno State's win, Wagner's a win, Houston
loss.
No, it might be a loss.
I think
West Virginia. They'll beat West Virginia. They'll beat Cincinnati. UCF's to win.
That's 6-0. Bill, hold on, pause. Halfway through the schedule, they're 6-0, but they're not important. They're gonna be a deciding factor.
Anybody yet? Okay, ready? Watch this. At Texas Tech, L. Kansas State, L. No. Oklahoma State,
Yep.
win. Arizona, win.
Iowa State, loss.
Win.
Versus Utah, loss.
Win.
8-4. 8-4 football team.
8-4.
Solid year. Entertaining.
Correct. Which Kansas would take in a heartbeat.
No, that's true. I completely agree with you. And I also think that, they could pull off a game. Obviously I chose Kansas State, but they could beat a Texas Tech. They could beat the Kansas State. They could beat Iowa State. So these games that we have them losing, they're going to have a say at the end of those games. They're going to be in each of those games because of their offense. So
I will say, though, Alex, to your point of Kansas being a good team, though, they start off the year 6-0. We're going to be looking at them like, granted, we know we just went through their schedule here. none of these teams, I think are going to have a true say in the Big 12 when it's all said and done. But you look at them and you're like, damn, it's week 7 and Kansas is 6-0. Now they're going up against Texas Tech team who I think at that time will still be ranked. And it's like, all right, well, let's see, what they really have here. So, I mean, I think to that point, I can understand why you would have them here as like an important team to kind of look out for. And
we got
again,
a bye week
Bills
going into Texas Tech game, just so you know.
And to Bill's point, I think them being 8-4 is something that they would 100% sign up for. So I mean, I think both things can be right there.
If they're 8-4, they're possibly the third place team in the Big 12, which means they're going to a big bowl game. So again, I think if you gave all their coaches a chance to do that right now and roll the dice, that would be a hard discussion for Kansas.
Yeah, I mean, and look, the reason why I'm excited about this team is because, like you said, you got a 6-year quarterback. I've said multiple times already. I'm not going to harp on that anymore. But it all comes down to him. They were 4-0 last year when he completed 60% of his passes or better, 1-7 when he didn't. So he's got to improve his decision making, and he's got to use his legs more. His first 2 years with Kansas, they had fantastic years, and he had over 400 yards rushing. He didn't really start running the ball last year until week 7 or 8, and he had 60 yards in 3 of the last 5 games on the ground. And that's when Kansas started playing Kansas brand football and started actually winning. So I look for Jalen Daniels to start out running the ball frequently as soon as week 1 against Fresno State. I think we're going to see it. And that's why I think that Kansas is going to have something to say about who goes to that Big 12 championship game, whether if they're included in that conversation or they're beating somebody that has a chance to go. I think Kansas is going to play a big factor in that Big 12 championship game. That's it. But
let's go to Boulder.
The biggest name. No, I'm just kidding. Like I said, a lot of people want to hear about Colorado. Obviously, Shedeur Sanders gone. Travis Hunter, Heisman Trophy winner, gone. What are we hearing about Colorado? Deion Sanders obviously having some health issues. He's not going to stop from coaching. What are the hopes for this Colorado team? 5.5 over under for win total.
So I'll tell you this. With Colorado, obviously I don't have, necessarily high hopes for them this year. But to the point that Bill repeatedly made when we first started the show, quarterback play is important. And I think with them having Caden Salter coming in from Liberty, I do think that is a huge positive for them. While I don't think he's Shedeur, I do think he brings a different dynamic for that team. He has the ability to use his legs, and he also has the experience. I don't know if this will be his 4th or 5th year, but I do know he's been in college a while there. And I do think that experience will help a ton for a Colorado team that is going to be missing out on, Shedeur and Travis's production from last year. Now, with that said, I think losing Travis is, of course, a huge thing. But I also think a bigger part of it is that you're not just losing Travis. You're losing Travis. You're losing Jimmy Horn. You're losing LaJohntay Wester. And those were your top 3 guys out there. And you have some guys like, I believe it's Omari Miller and Draylon Miller who are coming back who were production pieces for that team last year. But it's different when you're the, forgotten about 4th or 5th option and you just have one good game and you go for, 80 yards, 100 yards, things like that. But when you're focused on every single week to be like the key guy, it's a different thing. And we know Colorado's had struggles running the ball as well. So while I like Caden Salter, and even if they go with Julian Lewis, I like him as well as a 5-star. But I just don't know if they have the weapons to truly put it together offensively and defensively. We know they were turnstile last year, even with Travis and Shiloh and all those guys. So I don't see that really being any better this year.
Yeah, but we got to remember, they have new offensive coordinator Pat Shurmur coming into town, and he's already said that he's going to look to run the ball a lot more effectively.
He was there last year.
I thought Sean Lewis left. No, he left 2 years ago.
He left 2 years ago. Yeah, Pat Shurmur was their OC last year.
Yeah. But Pat Shurmur, he already said in the press he's going to try to run the ball a lot more effectively this season. But I think it starts up front with the O-line. The offensive line allowed 94 sacks in the last 2 seasons, And Caden Salter did not have to suffer from that kind of pressure at Liberty. So we're going to see how Caden Salter can kind of react to pressure especially on that defensive front side. Luckily, he is a mobile quarterback, but we saw what pressure did to him when they played Oregon in that bowl game 2 years ago. He was looking like a chicken with his head cut off running around. He did make some plays, but it'll be nice to see what another year of development from last season does to his headspace when he does come up against those defenses in the Big 12 that are going to give him a little bit of pressure.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think Cottrell was pretty honest and accurate on point with this. I think it's going to be a different team. They're going to have to play differently than they did last year. You don't have Shador, and more importantly, you do not have Travis, which, love him, hate him, wherever you fall on the spectrum. The kid single-handedly won them some football games last year. He is not going to be there. And then on top of that, like you said, Horn and the rest of the supporting cast moving on as well. This is going to be a brand new offense. It's going to be, I don't want to say the look's going to be completely different, but I do think they'll try to run the ball a little bit more to keep the defense off the field. And if the offensive line's improved enough that they can do that, maybe it's a little bit of improvement in different ways than we're used to seeing. And it's intriguing, and that graphic tells you all you need to know. The two most bet on things: are they going to win the 6th game, or are they only going to win 4 games, or 5 games? So it is. It's going to be an interesting year, but I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a good foundation year for Colorado and Deion. And I say that with what they have there. I think if they can continue to build and recruit the way they are, and not that it was a circus, but just with having Shador and Travis being such high-profile players there, I think with it being a little bit more quiet around Boulder is a good thing. I think they'll be able to start building this team, a little bit step by step, and not that they did the wrong way before, but not relying on superstars per se. And then I think in 2 or 3 years, I think Colorado could be really, really good. And that's assuming Deion stays, which, I'm hoping he does. But, I guess we can go through the schedule here and see where we all fall. But it's going to be interesting.
And I know we're going to go through it here, but I'll say which ones I think are wins and losses. But just like first glance at this, I'm like, I can kind of see Colorado having a little hype train. I think and this might sound crazy, but I think they start the year out 5-1. And by the Kansas State game, we're talking about a team that is barely bowl eligible. Like, I think they end at 6-6. So of course, we'll go through what a lot of these look like, but I think this is a team I think this may be a team that ultimately is really looked at as fool's gold. Because if they're 5-1 going into the Iowa State game, assuming that Iowa State's having a good start to the year, I think people are going to be like, oh, this Colorado team is actually pretty decent. But I think it's more about BYU being bad or, some of these other teams that they're seeing beforehand.
Yeah, I mean, I think Georgia Tech's definitely going to be a nice little measuring stick. Obviously, it's at home in Colorado. The last few times they've opened up a home, well, not few, the last couple of years with Deion there, their first home game has been rocking. And the crowd really comes out to support. And I think that that's going to be a great measuring stick for them. Obviously, I think I had Georgia Tech as a team I thought should have been ranked in the top 25. I think that they start off with a loss. But I think after that game, we'll be able to come on this show and speak to the type of team Colorado is and what they're going to be. If we're going to know if their running game has improved, we're going to know if their offensive line is better than last season, or if they're going to give up 7 sacks against that Georgia Tech defense. So I'm excited for that first game so we can really get a full vision of what this team looks like. But are we all in agreement that they lose at Georgia Tech or lose against Georgia Tech?
Absolutely. Georgia Tech scores 40 on that Colorado defense. No problem.
At least. I bet after that first week, Haynes King is talked about heavily in the Heisman Trophy conversation right after week 1. He's like, favorite, Haynes King jumps up the leaderboard. Then we got Delaware. I think that's a win. At Houston, obviously could be a tough game, but win. Bill, feel free to chime in.
It's a win. I was just making sure Georgia. I was making sure Georgia Tech wasn't a neutral site game. That's all. But it is at Colorado.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's actually a good thing to know. But Wyoming
To win.
Win.
BYU
Loss.
Win.
I mean,
home.
they did lose. Okay, I'll go with the win there. TCU though, I think is an L. I think that the offense can put up points against Colorado. I think Josh Hoover is definitely going to take a huge step forward. I think he had over 4,000 yards, almost 4,000 yards passing last year, 27 touchdowns. I like what Josh Hoover brings to the table. I think TCU wins at Colorado pretty easily.
I'll go loss.
I'm taking Colorado. Like I said, I think they start off 5-1, and then I think this right side is the murderer's row for them.
So, Bill, you had TCU winning?
Yep.
Okay, so loss at TCU. So they have them starting off at 4-2, which is still, I think, any Colorado fan would take a 4-2 start on the season. Versus Iowa State.
Loss.
I think that's a loss too. Rocco Beck. I think that's just too much. At Utah, I think we've talked enough about playing at Utah.
Loss.
Yep, I think that's a loss as well. Versus Arizona, I think
This
that's
is
a
the
50-50 game, and I think that they're going to come out the right side of that. I also think they win at West Virginia.
See, I think this is the loss. I think they feel high off the Arizona win. You got to go to Morgantown, and that's the one that, tricky game. West Virginia's not supposed to win it, and something that they'll do. And I know this game, I'm almost positive this game is November 8th because I was looking at potentially trying to go to it. I think West Virginia wins this one.
You'll get murdered if you go to this football game.
Oh yeah, no, it's over now. I was looking at it beforehand.
Oh, all right. I thought you were looking like 2 weeks ago. I was like, that's very daring.
Back in like April.
I do agree. West Virginia's that time of year, especially. That's a tricky trip. Morgantown is
Colorado is cold, man.
It's not that though. It's not that
atmosphere. Morgantown will be ready for that game because it's Dion.
Like college, like Morgantown is college town through and through.
Yep, it's on the side of a mountain. It's actually a really cool campus.
I was literally just there a couple weeks ago. It is, side of a mountain is a perfect definition.
Yep.
You're the deciding vote, Bill.
Oh, make a decision.
2, 3.
I'll go in.
Win. So that puts them at 6-4. Then they go to they play Arizona State at home.
Loss.
Then at Kansas State, that's a loss. My opinion.
Loss.
So 6-6. Bowl eligibility.
Right where I have them. That's right where I have them at. I think they start the season off hot, even at 4-2. I think Colorado fans like, all right, like maybe this is something. Like maybe, we only got one conference loss. Like maybe something can happen here. And
Last
then you go
2 years they've had these hopes.
Yeah.
I'm right on the border of either 5-7 or 6-6.
And that's why the over and the under is the most bet on prop in college football, because no one can decide if they're going to win that 6th game or not. So
it's like Cottrell said. I think. I mean, I'll put it to you this way: if they do go 4-2 on the left hand side, I think they're in trouble. Because I definitely think they're losing the last 2 games. So that's 4 right there. And then you got West Virginia, tricky. Arizona they should win. And then they'd have to win 2 of the 3 of those, or 2 of the 4 of those. Or 3 of the 4 of those. Iowa State. Yeah, Iowa State will be home. At Utah's a tricky trip. Arizona they should kill. And then West Virginia. That second half of the year is tough.
Yeah, I agree. But as always, Dion and the Dion crew are going to be on the forefront of everybody in college football's minds. They're going to be talked about, one of the most talked about teams in the country outside of an SEC or Big Ten school. So I think 6-6. I think that's a fair assessment.
But again, Dion will never say this out loud because he's obviously a confident human being, and I don't think he would want to take his foot off the gas or come up with any excuses for his kids. But kind of like we said with Kansas, I think if you told Dion right now that they're 7-5 at the end of the year, I think he would take it in a heartbeat.
Agreed.
Hands down. Yeah, absolutely. All
right, so who do we all have? Who do we all have in the Big 12 championship game here?
We pulling up the mountain, or are we just saying?
All right, we can do that.
I'm asking. No, I'm asking that. I'm not.
I mean, I think the mountain's different because I think the mountain is who we're saying could possibly make the playoff. I think they're a little bit different.
Okay,
just my opinion.
That's cool. Well, I have the odd one, so I mean, I guess I can go first here. I have the Texas Tech Red Raiders making it, and I also have them going up against the Baylor Bears.
Wow.
I think these are my two that I am locked in on this upcoming year. Texas Tech, I'd argue, and I get it. You actually have to see it play out on the field, but with what they got out of the portal, I truly believe they have the best offensive and defensive line in this conference. They were able to get 3 bona fide starters on their offensive line. They also went out and got 2 of the top defensive line prospects in the transfer portal. Not to mention, they also brought in one of my favorite receivers out of the transfer portal, and Micah Hudson. I think this Texas Tech team, yes, it will take time for them to gel and for them to figure it out. But doing that before you get into conference play, I think this Texas Tech team is one that is very under the radar. I know they are ranked at 23, but I don't think people realize how good this Texas Tech team can actually be. And then, I have them going up against Baylor, who, as quiet as it's kept, Baylor was a solid Big 12 team last year. Bringing back Sawyer Robertson again this year for them, I think that offense will be explosive. And I think they're going to be a team that surprises a lot of people this year. And just kind of looking through their schedule, their tougher games are at home this year for the most part. And so I think Baylor is going to surprise a lot of teams and make it to the Big 12 championship. But ultimately, I got Texas Tech winning the Big 12 and clinching that automatic berth to the playoff.
Yeah, and as far as I go, I'm not really gonna try to break the internet or anything with these predictions. Oh, hey, Bill's got a new background. I'm not gonna try to break the internet with it's just caught me off guard. Break the internet, but I think it's gonna be a return to the Big 12 championship for Arizona State, and I'll give you guys one guess on who they're gonna be playing, and that's Kansas State. Avery Johnson's going to take I think Kansas State wins the Big 12 championship. I don't know, Cottrell, if you said who you thought was going to win between that Baylor-Texas Tech game, but I think that this is the year that Kansas State goes over the top. Avery Johnson becomes a household name, and they earn their way into the college football playoff. Why are you laughing, Bill?
You act like how many people you think watch college football seriously don't know who Avery Johnson is?
I'm going to make it so people who don't watch college football know his name, Bill.
Oh my God.
So yeah, Kansas State, Arizona State. I love where Arizona State returns as far as offense goes. Sam Levitt, Jordan Tyson. I think that's, like I said, the best 1-2 combination as far as quarterback wide receivers in the returning combinations in the country. And then Avery Johnson, Jace Brown, and then Dylan Edwards. I think this is going to be a special offense in Kansas State, and that's who I got playing in the Big 12 championship, and I think Kansas State comes out on top.
Well, I have the same 2 teams because I think they are, especially to start the year, I think they are a little bit, clear of the rest of the conference. I've made no bones about it. I'm going to roll with Arizona State. Again, I like Sam Levitt. Busting balls aside, I think Kansas State's going to have a good year. I do think Avery Johnson's going to be, a name that you hear a lot, but I love good defenses, and I think Arizona State has a ball hawking defense. And like I said, with all them returning, 9-11 starters returning, I like their depth. I like their experience. I don't think anything is going to surprise them this year. I don't think there's going to be situations that are going to be where, the lights are too bright per se. So I like Arizona State to beat Kansas State in the championship game.
Cottrell, I don't think you said who you thought was going to win the Baylor-Texas Tech matchup.
Oh, I said Texas Tech.
Okay, I missed it.
Texas Tech, I think, is going to be too much for them. And, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to tell you, I'm buy your stock now. I'm putting everybody on notice. Alex, I'm as strong on this Texas Tech team as you were on SMU last year.
Okay.
Telling everybody now, buy your stock now, because once they go 11-1 and make the college football playoff, don't be surprised, because that team is loaded with talent. And you could talk about, you said something earlier, which is honestly, I respect the hell out of it. Teams just buying their way through the transfer portal. I'm not a big fan of that either. But what Texas Tech has done, they've really just been this middle of the road team. Just a solid Big 12 team. But as much talent as they've gotten out the portal, I think they got 8 bona fide starters from previous teams out the portal, and I think that's going to matter, and especially in the Big 12 where I think it is a down year. I think that talent will show.
All right. Well, time will tell. I will say this. I think Big 12, I think a lot like the ACC. I think it's going to be I think it'll be 4 or 5, maybe even 6 teams that are in that 8-4, 9-3 range. We've talked about a bunch of them. I do think Baylor, Texas Tech, one way or another, are going to factor in and have a say of who wins the Big 12 championship this year. But again, I think that with a rebuilding Colorado, I think now that all the dust is finally settled, I think if you're a Big 12 fan, you kind of have to be. I don't like to be happy, but I think you'd at least be content with where the conference is and kind of heading the right direction. So I think it'll be an exciting year again in the Big 12. And then we'll see how they do with the college football playoff this year. Because Arizona State, took a lot of people by surprise last year. So be really curious to see if they have another run in them, or maybe it's Kansas State, maybe it's Baylor. Who knows? But it'll be fun to watch. So what do we have left? We have Heisman, and then we got an Eliminator. So we have 6 minutes for kickoff.
Perfect timing.
I wish. So Heisman, I mean, I think there's some low-hanging fruit here. I think if you take Sam Levitt or Avery Johnson, you're probably right. I think they probably have the best odds out of anybody in the Big 12. But who are some other names you guys think that could possibly hit the board there?
Honestly, I just assumed you guys were going to take both of them. I knew who Alex was going to say, and then I just thought you would take Sam. But I'm going with the guy who's a returning starter. I'm rolling with Sawyer Robertson.
Bro,
not that I truly think that he can win it, but I do think that if this Baylor's team is as good as I think that they can be, he's going to be a big part of the reason why. I mean, he threw for over 3,000 yards last year, had 28 touchdowns and to 8 interceptions there. And it really felt like he didn't even really get comfortable until week 5 or week 6 of the regular season there. So I think with him now being a senior this upcoming year, with a lot of room to improve in a year where, I think that the Big 12, again, I said it before, I'll say it again. I think the Big 12 is going to be down per se this year. So I think he's going to have the opportunity to put up some big time numbers, and he's my one to look out for in the Big 12.
Cottrell, I freaked out when you said his name, because that's when Bill asked who else we're looking at. Sawyer Robertson was right on top of my list. I loved what he did against LSU in the bowl game, 445 yards passing against LSU. Dude's got an arm just over 3,000 yards passing, 28 touchdowns. This Baylor team can score with anybody. It really just kind of depends on if their defense is going to be able to hold up and stop against a prolific offense of the Big 12. But if I had to throw a guy's name out there that's not on anybody's watch list, it's going to be Devin Dampier. Dampier. I probably am mispronouncing the hell out of this name, but Devin Dampier, quarterback, Utah. He had 3,000 yards passing last year, 1,100 rushing yards. He had, He had 6 games over 100 rushing yards last year, and one game with over 200 yards rushing. And to go along with that, he had 5 games with over 250 passing yards as well. So dude can truly sling it. He can run it. He can do whatever he wants when he has that ball in his hands. And he's truly a multidimensional quarterback and someone that's going to be extremely fun to watch, especially if Utah's defense is what Utah's defense can be. Utah's going to make some noise in the Big 12. They're going to have some late season primetime games. He's going to get the exposure that he needs. He didn't get a lot of exposure at New Mexico, but Utah's the place to go. Because like I said, when Utah was that team to beat in the Pac-12, that's when Cam Rising was pre-injury, and that's when Cam Rising was mobile Cam Rising. So you put a guy like Dampier, where he has an over 1,000-yard season on the ground, it could be magic. The issue with him is that last season he had 12 touchdown passes, 12 interceptions. He's got to find a way to, just like Avery Johnson, throw the ball away. Don't force the ball into tight positions. Make better decisions and use your legs, baby. And if he does, he's going to be someone that's going to be in the conversation as far as Heisman goes because he's definitely got the skills and awareness to do so.
Did you just combine the words magic and dick a second ago?
Did I say magic dick?
No, you said match dick. I don't know what the hell you were doing there.
I think I meant majestic.
Oh, God, it's even worse.
I was just going to say, let's not forget either. The Heisman winner from last year came from this very conference, and it came from this very preview. I remember we had Bill. I can't remember who you had, but remember I had Travis. I remember Alex was talking about Avery Johnson, and that's just to say like the Big 12, even though they're not this premier conference, and Travis was on a team at Colorado that ultimately ended up going 8-4. I think was their final record there. You put up the season, you can still win it, even if you're not the best player in the Big Ten or the best player in the SEC or things like that. So very curious to see how this all pans out, moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't disagree with anything you said. I don't think there's another Travis Hunter in the Big 12 this year.
Fair.
Generational type guy, but you never know. I mean, again, I hate to say it, but I mean, if Avery Johnson does go nuts, then I mean, why not? I don't think anybody would have bet that the Big Ten would win back-to-back national titles. So, who's to say, Heisman winner can't come out of, the Big 12 2 years in a row?
Absolutely. I'm behind that. Well, I guess that leaves one more segment.
Eliminator Mountain.
Oh, he gave Michigan a pity banner. Look at that.
As he should. I didn't get my damn intro. It's the least you could do is give me a pity banner. Asshole.
That's true, Kashel. You made the effort to make your own damn Ohio State national championship intro and told nobody. I didn't know.
We've had a new intro video every season at the beginning of the season. It just so happens that you guys didn't pick up that last year Michigan's wasn't at the end of it. That's all. That's all that is. But we had a new video last year.
Whatever, man. Anyway.
Slobberknocker.
Slobberknocker of an episode. That's what the title of this episode should be. Slobberknocker. Anyway, nope. You know what? We should not pause. We should not do that. Nope. We're going to get totally different kind of views. Anyway.
Whatever. Growth is growth.
Eliminator Mountain.
Growth is growth with the Slobberknocker.
Jeez Louise. I need to go lie down. Anyway, obviously Eliminator Mountain, we each nominated teams. Only 5 teams last week. I feel like we had 8 or 9 teams up here. This week we only have 5. Cottrell, you want to give us the 2 teams that you recommended for the Eliminator Mountain?
Yeah, so you had asked me for 3, but I could only really give you 2. I said Texas Tech and I said Baylor. That's not to say that I don't think other teams could have been there. Like Kansas State, obviously I knew could be there, but no need for me to give them because I already knew what Alex was going to say about Kansas State there. And then Arizona State, I'm just not as high as everybody else is on them. I think they're going to have a decent year. I just don't think they're going to repeat the success they had last year. But with Texas Tech and Baylor, ultimately, I think Texas Tech. I've talked about how much I've loved him so far, and then again with Sawyer Robertson at the helm for Baylor, I just think they have the opportunity to shred a lot of defenses in the Big 12, and maybe this can be like an old school like Oklahoma State team where they just outscore teams 42-35 or 51 to 48 and stuff like that. So those are the two teams that I ultimately went with.
Bill, go for it.
Like I said a couple minutes ago, I went with Arizona State and Kansas State. I don't think this is a clear front-runner situation as strongly as I feel like, say, with Clemson and the ACC. I do think both these teams are a little bit better than everybody else, though. I understand the Texas Tech. I understand the Baylor. I don't understand the Kansas. But I think if everything plays out the way it should, I do think they are the two best teams in the conference. So that is where that's where I'm staking my claim at this point.
Hey, and like for me, I did choose three teams. Two of them Bill had chosen with Kansas State and Arizona State. We've gotten to those two teams pretty in-depthly. I haven't had a chance to really kind of dive into Kansas as much as I wanted to, but Kansas is definitely probably the team that I think as a dark horse has a chance to make the conference championship game. Like so with Jalen Daniels being a sixth-year guy. And people forget that they lost to Kansas State last year by 2 points before then rattling off 3 straight ranked victories. So like I said, the potential of this team is a Big 12 championship game appearance. But the floor is also 3 or 4 wins. But I thought that said just to throw a different name out there as someone that I'm still actually looking at and not just joking around with. I do think Kansas is going to have a fantastic season, and I'm excited to see what they can do. And you know what? They could surprise some people, and I thought they deserved at least the first couple weeks on the mountain. And if they happen to blow it, then we'll kick them right off and bury them under the ground. So I'm not too worried about it. But that's why I picked Kansas State. And boys, this is our updated Eliminator Mountain view with all ACC and Big 12 teams included.
It's getting crowded, and we're getting into the two conferences next 2 weeks that are surely going to add some more logos to this mountain.
I was just going to say the one thing we got to remember too is that we can't be too high on a team or too low on a team. I mean, we had Florida State on the mountain to begin the year last year, and I mean, I don't even know if they have a corpse on the mountain anymore. Like I think it's just disintegrated underneath all of the things that were buried on top of it. So
it got taken away. They barely got out of base camp. They didn't get up high enough to the point where it was too dangerous to come come get them.
Oh, green boots.
Yeah, he didn't get up to green boots. Nowhere
close.
Nowhere close to green boots. So, all right, we got to wrap up. We went a little bit long. Thank God there's no kickoffs. But this week too, next week, this is kind of like the second. This is like the salad portion of the show. You had your appetizer, you got your salad. We started getting to the main course next week. We'll be doing the SEC next week. Same kind of format. I mean, pretty much same show. Obviously, we don't know what the headlines will be, but probably a little bit more of a preview show because there's probably more teams that we need to look at with it being in the SEC. And then, like I said, it's I would say there'll probably be quite a few. Well, I don't know. We'll see how everybody feels, but definitely going to be some teams added to the mountain. And then week 4, obviously, we will do Big Ten last, obviously because of the fandom of the show, number one, but also. Quite
been
frankly,
the best damn conference the last 2 years. Let's say it boldly.
It is what it is.
Deservedly so. The last 2 years, back-to-back national champions. They're going to go last because they've earned it. So, and then after that, we have live football, gentlemen. So it is we are getting closer and closer. I'm excited. So any final thoughts, gentlemen? Wrap up week 2. I sound like Alex making up words. Rack.
No, I got nothing, man. I'm excited for next week's SEC show. This gives me a full week to tune in to the Netflix show. That's following the SEC from this past year, and just give me some ideas of some talking points, kind of see what was going on behind the scenes there, and probably give you even more reason why I can't stand Brian Kelly and Lane Kiffin.
Is it all of the SEC, or are they just following certain teams?
There was a few that opted out, but they're following a lot of SEC schools.
That's gonna be a lot to track. That's cool. I mean, different discussion for a different day, but I feel like Netflix sports has just taken over, like has definitely surpassed like HBO with like their shows and everything else they have going on. So I'm curious to watch it, between that and PGA show, the Formula One show, even the wrestling show that just came out, which is awesome. A lot going on. So yeah, we will dive into that, I'm sure. Hopefully I have time to watch it this week. But Alex, any final thoughts?
No,
don't say Avery Johnson's name.
He's got nothing.
Avery Johnson, I'm so sorry. Whew,
There you go.
I was gonna throw up for a second, but yeah, Avery Johnson, put your money in now. No, I'm just Big 12 is going to be exciting. Last year is one of the most fun conferences to watch from start to finish, and I expect it to be the same this year. So, great football ahead.
All right, that is it. Week 2 is under wraps. Well, preview week 2 is under wraps. Can't really say week 2. We'll be back next Saturday. We will see everybody then.
All right, gents, enjoy your morning.
Laters.